This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Oh my God!
Welcome, everybody, to episode 91 of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On this week's episode, got a ton to recount. This WWE champion is taking some time off. We'll tell you why. The reason behind a Raw reunion next week, as well as after a monumental weekend of wrestling, we've got to go through the injury report. So we'll get you updated on who's banged up, who's beat up, and who's missing time, as well as reviewing both Raw and Smackdown. And, of course, we've got to go over Extreme Rules. Doing it with me, as always, he's the one, he's the only, he's my cousin. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
The John Macaroon Show, baby, about to kick off.
Is that what this
Oh,
is?
man, what a weekend of wrestling. So excited, cuz, man, I had a great time. Watched Extreme Rules on Sunday, Raw and Smackdown. I'm so excited. I love doing the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. Really got into it. And I think at this point in time, with competition, the WWE has stepped up. Now, we're not talking about boring shows. We're actually talking about storylines that we either agree with or disagree with. And I think that's much better. Because of the fact AEW is on the scene, WWE has noticeably, very noticeably, has a markedly sharper edge in terms of the promos, in terms of the content. Obviously, when you use the B word and some of the promos that have happened, look, I'm an older guy, so I like it. And so, look, when you have competition, it forces you to be better. And whether you agree or disagree with some of the content on WWE, they have been better. And I think I like it because we're doing this podcast and we're not talking about being bored out of our minds. We can actually talk about where we see the storylines going. Now, there were some missed opportunities across the board in terms of Extreme Rules, Raw, and SmackDown. But by and large, a great week of wrestling. So let's start talking about Extreme Rules. I thought it was a great pay-per-view, highlighted by the fact that Paul Heyman comes out and says, look, we're going to cash it in. You have a great match between Seth Rollins and Baron Corbin in the intergender match. Obviously, Lacey and Becky Lynch performed outstanding. I thought the match was great. I thought having Baron Corbin perform the End of Days on Becky was perfect because then now you explain the reason why Seth flips and he's drained, and then Brock Lesnar comes out and you got a new Universal Champion. First and foremost, what was your reaction to that? Because online, it was mixed. It was a lot of more of the same. This sucks, but I think it sets up perfectly. But I just think the resulting feud was the most disappointing to me.
It made sense, and we kind of touched on it a little bit when we were doing our predictions. I think we both thought it was coming. I thought it was a little bit of a missed opportunity, though. I thought you had the possibility to really elevate a guy who's holding your most prestigious title.
So you thought Seth should have won. So you thought Seth should have won that match.
I thought Seth should have beaten Baron Corbin, and they should have retained their titles, and then you should have just faded to black. I thought Brock should have cashed in against Kofi. So I think you help elevate Kofi, and you help elevate that title, and then you set up a pretty interesting feud by putting Brock and Kofi together against each other. The reason for this is, what has Kofi really done? Does his title feel important right now? I don't really think it does.
Because he hasn't had that marquee feud yet.
Exactly. I mean, look, we both thought the Samoa Joe was going to be a great opponent for him. And it was kind of a wah-wah-wah match. It wasn't anything special, wasn't anything great. He hasn't had that one awesome rivalry with anybody yet. And I think by having Brock Lesnar cash in against him and just obliterate him, beat him down, and then have him chase to get his title back, and then at SummerSlam, get it back and let him carry it for a little bit, I think you help elevate him, and you help elevate that belt, and you help elevate that title.
Now, like you said, there were missed opportunities. There were some things to criticize for sure. I'll start with the couple things that I liked. I liked the way that Braun Strowman walked away from Extreme Rules. he walked away from Extreme Rules being super over, and people believing
both Braun
that
and Lashley.
both of them, that match was unbelievable. The true definition of two brute, brawny guys going in there and having an amazing match. So
It was a heavyweight slugfest.
I thought it was awesome. And Bobby Lashley, I think that's how you should have portrayed him early on. I don't know why it would have taken you a year to realize that. You wasted a year with a talent that, by having all these gimmicks and things like that. But if Bobby Lashley can have that kind of quality feud, keep it going. I think the biggest indictment of Extreme Rules was Finn Balor Nakamura on the pre-show. You really devalue the Intercontinental title, and especially with the match they had on SmackDown, it was quality. Why put them on the pre-show if you're going to have a squash match like we saw with Owens and Dolph Ziggler? You could have might as well give them 8 minutes on the pre-show.
Yep. I agree with you 110%. I think you miss a little bit of an opportunity here as well because, one, you put it on the pre-show, and two, you didn't really have a build to this. There was really nothing. We threw it on our predictions because we thought this might get added, and it definitely got added. But you could have really extended this out. You could have made this worthwhile. You could have made this something. And instead, it was a one-off on SmackDown, and then you got it here. And it was pre-show fodder. And this could have really been a match or a spectacle that could have really highlighted and accentuated Extreme Rules. Just the overall card. Because these two are incredible. And these two have history, and these two know how to work each other, and these two can tell a great story in the ring, and I think the build would have been that much better if you had them both on point and involved in this.
Yeah, and with Samoa Joe, I think that it's really tough to establish his character because when he does get wins, then all of a sudden you turn around and have him take a beating. So Samoa Joe's character is the most misused character, I think, in WWE right now.
It's been a year plus.
Of opportunities failed.
He's gone nowhere. I can make the argument that he'd have been better sticking in NXT or never coming to WWE because this stop and start push gimmick that they've got going with him
doesn't work.
Is absolutely brutal. You can't buy into him. Like you knew going into the match against Kofi Kingston, right? You knew Kofi was winning.
Yeah.
Like Samoa Joe wasn't winning this belt. They don't believe in Samoa Joe.
So Samoa Joe's gimmick is I lose big matches and then I beat people up.
Arguably, he's the best guy on your microphone. He cuts the best, most intense promo. He is believable as a badass, yet you devalue him in every other match. He gets going no place. It's absolutely nuts.
And I think the thing with a couple wrestlers is that we're talking about that we're being critical of. Where's the payoff?
Yeah.
Where's the payoff for Samoa Joe? It's not been there. Obviously, he's had a couple U.S. title runs and things like that. He's been in the mix and he's on the cards, which is fine. But at this point in time, we're looking at him similar to Kofi Kingston. It's like, okay, we've seen Samoa Joe outside of WWE for many, many years carry companies and have great matches. It's time. Hopefully.
Dude, he carried parts of TNA.
Yeah.
Carried parts of ROH.
Yeah.
The guy is amazing.
How much more time does the guy got to wait to get an opportunity? Or, at the very least, don't have him lose. Don't have him lose. DQ. If you want to go with the route of, hey, we want to keep this guy elevated, just don't have him lose clean to guys. It's not right. So Samoa Joe comes out of this pay-per-view really, really with his stock down. I think a lot of people were disappointed in not seeing Sasha Banks. I think the match was okay between Bayley and Alexa and Nikki Cross, but really nothing really serious to write home about. I think many people were disappointed, at least 10. I think many people were then disappointed after the match. Nikki Cross and Alexa don't turn on each other. Why not?
I was going to say, this seems like it's the most long, drawn-out, boring storyline ever. At some point, one of these two have to turn on each other. There has to be some type of payoff because this is absolutely abysmal right now. I'm cool with Bayley winning. I just this whole thing is frustrating. A question for you because you're a huge AJ Styles mark.
Oh, that was great. Yes.
And you also love Ricochet.
Yep.
WWE did a great job booking themselves into a little bit of a corner, and then they did a pretty solid job dancing out of that corner. But do you feel like Ricochet kind of got the short end of the stick here by losing to AJ Styles and his character not really getting solidified? Because now AJ is your new U.S. champ, and he is running amok with the club, which is cool, which is fine. I think we both like that. But Ricochet, I think we both kind of felt needed that win to kind of catapult him into that stratosphere, while AJ could have suffered the loss and continued the chase.
See, unfortunately, when you have this matchup, I think the timing of it makes it bad for Ricochet because many people view him as a big star. But unfortunately, you're not bigger than the club. You're not bigger than AJ Styles. And so when you're looking at a pay-per-view, you got to look at business. and you're going into Toronto, you're going into SummerSlam, you want to have big names hold the belts, and you want to have big names being chased too. And you want to have big names chasing belts. So I think it's absolutely perfect. Look, Ricochet is made. Everyone knows when his music hits, you want to see him. Great moves, great artist, got to work on his promos, but he's not yet at the level of AJ Styles. He's obviously ascending. He's obviously super talented. He's obviously getting a push. But at the same time, you have to establish the club on Raw, because of the fact they've been on Raw for years. They've teased it for so long. If AJ Styles and the club lose, then you just devalue the entire faction and you've wasted time. And so Ricochet losing doesn't hurt his star because he's a rookie, still in essence a rookie. So you're going to have many more opportunities to rise up with Ricochet because in essence, he's still a first-year character in WWE. A guy like Samoa Joe can't afford to lose because he's been a wrestler for 15 years and you're using him like an elevated mid-card talent when he should have championship gold around his waist for at least 6 months. That's what we're all waiting for. So on that front, no problem with AJ Styles winning it. I thought it was a great match, and all hail AJ, baby, the club. That's what you got to do now. Get the belts on Gallows and Anderson, and hopefully one day we get to see a little bit of a run, even if it's for a week, like the New Day has. The New Day comes out looking awesome.
You know what would be cool, and we've talked about this a couple times, is somehow Finn joining the club.
Yes.
So you've got AJ,
Hopefully,
you've got Finn, and
it has to happen.
You've got Gallows and
Or
Anderson.
tease it a little bit for a while.
All of them have belts.
Yes.
I think that would be great.
The club, running amok, going into SummerSlam and the end of the year type stuff would be amazing.
I think it would be awesome.
Or even going to the Royal Rumble. I'd be happy with that.
So this was, when we were doing our predictions, this was one of those cards where we were almost in lockstep with each other all the way through. We had one or two different selections, and because of that, you ended up outpicking me by one, and thus you take the point, and now you have recaptured the lead, I think, for only the second time? Maybe the third time since we've been doing this. You now lead 11 to 10.5 in calling the card.
The reigning, defending, predicting champion, the DOC. And you know it when I come out here. 11 to 10.5, I'll take it. I'll enjoy it because, coming up on SummerSlam, we're going to be way off because that card is going to be so hard to predict because they're going to set forth the course for Survivor Series, the fall, and new TV. So it's going to be super hard to predict what's going to happen because you could have every title change hands or you could have none. You could have major surprises. So I'm going to enjoy my summer reign, and then we'll see what happens at SummerSlam. I might just pick very, very similar to you and just, have it all come down to one match.
The match that kind of swung everything out of order here was the Revival versus the Usos. You picked the Revivals, I picked the Usos.
Yep.
That was the one that swayed it your way.
And we had a title change for SmackDown, but the wrong team.
Yes, exactly. We were both on opposite sides there, and New Day ended up taking the tag belts.
Now I just want to take 90 seconds to review Fyter Fest. It was a good card, but it was a house show, and many people walked away from it kind of concerned regarding the production value. I liked the way overall it looked. The matches were good. I felt like it was quality matches, but again, way too long. Why the hell are you going 4.5 hours on a house show? And the thing is they were asked about it. They're not going to stop. They're not going to slow down. These shows are going to go long because Cody said that, hey, we hired you to do your thing. We're not going to have 8-minute matches. So every match is going to go roughly 20 minutes on these pay-per-views. So unfortunately, I can't invest that much time in watching the wrestling. So I picked a couple matches to highlight and watch, but you can't, in my opinion, ask people to stay with you 4.5 hours. And then at the end, you're about to deliver an exceptional promo, and then you have the owner come out with a check.
It gets
you
cut
botched.
off.
You botched it royally, and then you're like, "Are we on the air? Are we not on the air?" And you're playing this up, and it's really a major botch, in my opinion. Major.
Do you see? Let's just have our AEW conversation now. Do you see some similarities between ECW and AEW? Because ECW, at certain times, if you go back in history when Paul Heyman was running it, there were times where they were either about to get pulled off air, or they had a generator die and they go off air. It's just little things that you never really notice with WWE. WWE has enough infrastructure and enough money and enough production behind them that if one thing goes wrong, they can quickly pivot to something else, or if something bad happens, they can quickly cover it all up and you don't really even notice it. It's almost seamless, whereas AEW is still kind of trying to figure it out, and it feels like it has this almost ECW-esque trial run to it.
No, my opinion is that after a major pay-per-view like Double or Nothing, you've kind of taken a step back with these two shows. Fyter Fest was okay, but Fight for the Fallen should have probably been a little bit better, but it wasn't. And because of the fact you put these people in 100-degree heat plus for 4.5 hours, by the time you get to the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes, they're doing great spots, and there's like crickets. You don't hear nothing. And the crowd wore the hell out, and you're realizing, man, what the hell's going on here with this crowd, especially with all the good spots and what was going on. I just say you got to sometimes tell people, look, yeah, I want you to get your stuff in, but get it in 15 minutes. You know, you can't let everyone go 18 minutes, 25 minutes, and let them get everything they want in. You know, you can have a balance between 16 to 20 minutes and 20 to 30 minutes. Every match can't go 25 minutes.
Right. I think
that's the biggest complaint I have.
I think you can have a shorter card, and you can have matches only go 10 minutes. You don't need every match to go 20, 25 minutes. You have a match go 10 to 12, 10 to 15 minutes. I think that's good because what it does is it helps vary the pace, and it helps keep you more engaged as a watcher. You know, as you're watching there are times where you're like, oh, cool, this is going to go 20 minutes. I can go take a pee break, grab a snack. I can come back before this thing really gets underway. Do you know what I'm saying?
100%.
Whereas if you know that you could possibly have a match done in 10 minutes, you're like, oh, crap, I got to stick around. I got to watch this whole thing.
And the biggest complaint that I would say is you have major talent. Chris Jericho, the Young Bucks, Cody, obviously one of the most over people in the company, one of the features of the videos. Cody Rhodes is a prominent feature, and Cody Rhodes is a prominent performer, and I think you and I believe that he might be really, really over.
Yeah, I think he's the most over guy right now.
But then the part that they got to work on from now until the end of September and going into TV is you got to elevate the mid-card people just a little bit more, because after the top-end talent, there's a big drop-off with a lot of people that are like, what's going on? What's going on with these stories? Obviously, we're going to pay attention to it heavily, but a lot of the fans that were in that arena didn't know what was going on with a lot of these angles, and you got to do a little bit better job of highlighting a couple more people in these television vignettes that you're doing on YouTube and stuff like that. Highlight the Jungle Boys, highlight the younger tag teams and things like that. Obviously, you have a lot of great tag teams that could be highlighted and featured. I think you just got to do a little bit more, because obviously you have Being the Elite, you have the previews, but I think you could just give a couple more features on the AEW channel to some of the younger talent. What's their story? How'd they get here? What do they want to do? Feature their stories a little bit more too.
Can I highlight a guy real quick from Fight for the Fallen?
Yeah.
Can I highlight a guy from Fight for the Fallen real quick? This is a guy who came over from WWE, who for the most part was a nobody there. He was involved in a couple things, was involved in a Royal Rumble, but he was mostly an afterthought. And what I've seen from this guy, and what I think we're going to continue to see, is the evolution of Shawn Spears, who I think is going to be an exceptional talent. You know how you were talking about upgrading that mid-card and highlighting some of those mid-card guys? I think he's going to be a guy who's going to help balance out that mid-card. I think he becomes an upper mid-card guy, and I think he helps carry part of that mid-card division. I think he will be a solid wrestler, and I think it's going to be something totally different than what you've seen in WWE. And I think that's going to spell excellent results for not just him, but for AEW.
Very solid, and I just can't wait for the fall. I just think with the pay-per-views, with the evolution of all these promotions, it's going to be a fun time. And thank goodness for AEW. Given the fact that Raw and SmackDown have been elevated drastically, the tone has changed because of the aggressiveness, the edge that you're seeing in AEW, Raw, and SmackDown. So I'm very happy for that. It's going to make for a great fall. And really, for wrestling fans, I'm not looking at it like either or. I'm a fan of both. I'm going to watch both, and I'm going to be looking to see who does what. But AEW has to improve upon production and being sharper.
Yes.
That you can't just rely on the fact that, hey, we got fans. You got to elevate. Otherwise, you're going to be really behind the 8 ball in a year or two.
Whoever the showrunner is, you got to really tighten up your game, because it's a little bit sloppy. All right, let's transition into Raw. Overall, I thought Raw was decent. I thought it had some really solid spots. I think it was a very level show, not too high, not too low. I thought it really helped build off of what was Extreme Rules and kind of set the groundwork for what's to come with SummerSlam. I thought it was okay. I don't think it was a great Monday Night Raw, but I don't think it was bad either.
It was a great show because I was all over the place. I was happy. I was frustrated. I was bored. It was all over the place. I was really into it. Some of the pluses for me were seeing Bray Wyatt come back. Obviously, Finn Balor It has his match. You go, okay, you see what's going on. Now, it was Finn Balor versus Samoa Joe, so you're like, oh, God, here we go again. It's kind of like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, 50,000. But it was
Cool.
a good
So
match.
your reaction to that was just like
Again,
mine. Yeah.
I was like, dude, I've seen this match 1,000 times.
Yes.
Like, why they keep throwing it out there? But they have the match, and it's used as a way to set up Bray Wyatt returning with the lights going down and the noise and everything. So it was awesome. And that mask was cool. I like the Fiend character. And look, if you're WWE, you got the reaction you wanted. The crowd popped. So all those vignettes, that's what it's supposed to be. You got the payoff, like we talked about earlier in the podcast. You got a payoff with Bray Wyatt. We're all happy. But like, I think you and I are like, okay, we're just going to go now. Are they going to F this up? And we don't want that. That was awesome on the show. I really enjoyed having Paul Heyman come out there and establish the 10 guys that you're going to have in this Battle Royal. The Battle Royal match in of itself was quality. A couple things that I didn't like. Obviously, the crowd shit on the Alexa Bliss match because of the fact it wasn't that good. The match wasn't quality, and so maybe the fans could have avoided chants like "this is awful" and things like that. But unfortunately, that match wasn't that good. And Alexa Bliss came out on Twitter and said, "Hey, you guys are being rude." But unfortunately,
disrespectful.
Hey, if this is the case, you got to put on better product. And unfortunately, if you're a woman in the Revolution, you have a higher standard. And if the fans don't like it, unfortunately, your match is going to be booed out of the arena like that match was.
If the fans don't like it, do something about it.
Exactly. Put on a better show.
You're in the middle of the match. Do something about it. Well, what do you think about Natty winning that to face Becky Lynch? Was that the right choice, or is there somebody else on this roster who probably should be facing Becky?
The crowd loved her promo, especially with Natty calling out Becky for being a bad lover. That was awesome. Using the B word, it was cool. It brought an edge to her promo. So you can see some of the elements of Heyman with the promos, the edge in which you're starting to see. And I think the performers like it. They're like, okay, we're just kind of loosening up a little bit. We don't have to be so PG. And I think the performers are liking it. I love the fact that it's going to be Natty, but unfortunately it's tough because she's a star, but just not big enough. You need a Sasha Banks. You need a bigger star. Now, it's in Toronto. You're going to sell a bunch of tickets. If you go in that direction and have Natty win, you got to give her a long run, establish her, because she's been there. We've seen this before. She gets elevated in the summer, I guess. She's a summer wrestler. But if it's not Sasha Banks, Natty's right up there, but she's just not big enough for SummerSlam. Like, because you got AJ Styles, you're going to have Seth Rollins in there with Brock Lesnar. It just doesn't feel big enough. It kind of feels a little bit light because you're going to have Ember Moon and Bayley. That's big. It just seems like Becky Lynch Natty might be the worst of the title matches in terms of where it's at because of Natty.
Right. And the thing is, it might be one of the best matches because of Natty.
And the hometown crowd.
Because she's so good.
You could have Let's Go Natty, Let's Go Becky. You're going to have the crowd obviously split. You're going to have a big support for Natty. So it's going to be fine. It's just, unfortunately, I don't think she's big enough.
This is the thing, right? She's exceptional at what she does, but she's not on that level. So
and that's WWE's fault because she is that talented.
Exactly. WWE does a bad job of promoting her.
Hopefully
her
this year Hopefully this year kicks her off as being a badass wrestler and highlighting her a little bit. Now, the biggest disappointment, I think, for a lot of WWE fans is, look, we saw Seth, Brock, WrestleMania.
Yep.
I don't want to see it for SummerSlam. I think
you've seen it for Extreme Rules.
I think you could have had Seth, Baron Corbin in a cage match, and that would have been the perfect way to go, because obviously Baron Corbin put a move on your wife.
Yeah.
You crossed that line. Why would you end that? It just seemed like you have Baron Corbin and you now halted him right there and there. You put him at a stop sign. What, you do the end of days and then that's it? No, you carry it forward. You now have Seth Rollins in the ring and Baron Corbin attacks him and goes, yeah, I got your missus, now you're next. And you elevate this. Because of the fact you had 9 guys in that ring that I think everybody in the universe would have liked. Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton. We would have liked to see maybe Big E, something different. Cesaro.
See, we
something fresh.
When we're talking about
Braun Strowman. Probably Braun Strowman would have been the most realistic choice, especially after that match. Why don't you have Braun Strowman? That would have made millions.
When we were talking about missing possible storylines, there's quite a few right here, right? So Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. You can't tell me that that's not going to be awesome. These are 2 guys who were MMA fighters. These are 2 guys who wanted to fight each other in MMA. You put them in that wrestling ring, and you capitalize off that. Randy Orton, last time Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar fought, Brock Lesnar busted him open the hard way. Okay? You mean to tell me you can't build off that? Like, that's not a Lego piece that's just hanging out for you to build on? Come on, dude. Or Big E. Forever and a day, we've heard about stories about Big E chasing after the world title, chasing after a championship, possibly going heel. This was his spot. This was his moment. Big E versus Brock Lesnar, I think, would be a great match.
Hell yeah.
And it's 2 large, thick dudes who are completely different. Big E can be funny. He's charismatic. He's gregarious. while Brock Lesnar is intimidating. It would be awesome because they are such polar opposites. Or how about Cesaro? You mean to tell me Paul Heyman? Cesaro's a Paul Heyman guy, right? So you mean to tell me you can't have Paul Heyman kind of caught in the middle of all this and build upon that, whether it be Cesaro or whether it be Brock? And you could even work a storyline in where Paul Heyman turns on Brock to side with Cesaro. I mean, missed opportunity after missed opportunity just so we could have Seth versus Brock again.
Yeah, that big major missed opportunity. It's just played out. It's just, unfortunately, I don't even know where you go from there. Do you have Brock lose? Do you have Seth win it? It's just not the way to go, in my opinion.
I agree with you 110%.
Now, talking about SmackDown, I watched it in full. I was like, okay, it was a good show. It had some elements that kept you engaged in regards to what's this announcement with Daniel Bryan and things like that. Obviously, you're carrying over storylines and things like that. I think the big thing is with Shane McMahon is you're still carrying on with him now, elevating and starting a feud again with Kevin Owens, which is, again, why are we revisiting that? You had a cage match. It was in Detroit. It was great to see. You know, I taped it. If you want to go back in the archives and find it, I'm screaming my head off, oh my God, Kevin Owens is falling off the cage. What the hell am I seeing? And it's great to see it live, but I don't want to see it again. And I'm like, you got Kevin Owens now playing this part of the guy that's being taken advantage of by management. And I get it. It's a way to get over, but it's played out. Kevin Owens is a great worker. Put him in a great feud. And I think the element that's upsetting everybody is you have Shane McMahon now being the guy that's going to feud with Kevin Owens. Why? We don't want to see it at all. By highlighting it doesn't make it something that's more acceptable. I want to see Kevin Owens feud with AJ Styles. I want to see Kevin Owens feud with Drew McIntyre, The Undertaker, anybody else, somebody major. Why are you continuously elevating Kevin Owens then to downgrade him to fight Shane McMahon? It doesn't work for anybody. Nobody wants to see Shane McMahon to the point where it's not that you got heat on Shane McMahon. It's to the point where you want to turn it off. I want to turn off that segment. I don't know why WWE doesn't realize it. But yet again, you open the show with Shane McMahon barring Kevin Owens. And then, okay, fine. If you want to be in the ring, you can't botch Kevin Owens' move. It's embarrassing. Yep. It's embarrassing all the way around. And it's just something that needed to end, especially when you had The Undertaker slam Shane McMahon at Extreme Rules. It should have ended the feud. It should have ended it right then and there. You have the easy way to ease out of Shane McMahon being on TV. Or hell, okay, if you want to take the easy route, Kevin Owens can now start an extended feud with Drew McIntyre. I mean, come on, anybody else.
And that would be perfect.
Heel versus babyface. Come on now. And the rest of the show, like I said, the big element coming away from the show is you got Samoa Joe, Randy Orton, and Elias, and they're trying to vie for who's going to fight Kofi Kingston. And I'm like, okay, but I would have been more clearly establishing the next foe for Kofi. In my opinion, should be Randy Orton. I think it's great. I think Randy Orton's the guy. He's got the look. He's ready and poised for the next thing. Elias and Samoa Joe, not believable. So I think it's a missed opportunity. The six-man tag was okay, but I'm fascinated to see who's going to take the lead. I'm hoping it's Randy Orton.
Yeah, I think Randy Orton would probably be the better story here.
Bigger draw, everything.
That being said, I'm underwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily need to see Randy Orton versus Kofi.
We need to see Kofi versus a big-time star.
Yeah.
You know what? You think maybe potentially? You know what? Here's the thing. You could have easily taken care of this in one meeting, okay? You know what? Several shows we've done it. Title versus title. You know, you have Kofi Kingston versus Brock Lesnar. You know, it could be a non-title match. You know, you got Kofi needing a good fight. He can also be elevated similar to Austin, where he takes a whooping, but he goes the longest, maybe 25 minutes in the ring with Brock Lesnar. You now have Seth Rollins going forward with his feud with Baron. You can take care of Randy Orton, maybe fighting Samoa Joe and things like that. I just think it would have been perfect to have this match take place. It doesn't have to be for a title. It can just be, hey, I need a challenge. I want to fight Brock Lesnar. I think this is the big money match. The two title holders. I don't think there's going to be too many title for title matches or two champions from the two different shows.
Or tell me what you think about this, right? And we're going to do some creative booking here real quick. You take Kevin Owens, and you have Kevin Owens fight Drew McIntyre, right? You have them enter a storyline. I think that's interesting. You then have Mustafa Ali challenge Kofi. Remember, Kofi took Mustafa Ali's spot. That's how he got that run.
They positioned it perfectly with Ali and Nakamura.
You like that?
Oh, yeah.
You like that much
perfect.
better?
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
I don't know if that works. I think you need either something really interesting or you need a big star to go up against Kofi. And I don't know who that is right now. I don't know who you give. Because to me, Brock Lesnar would have been perfect. You can have Seth retain his title and then challenge
Okay.
Baron Corbin, like you said, in the steel cage.
Okay, so
You got-
perception-wise, Bobby Lashley. Why didn't he just show up on SmackDown and say, hey, you know what? I've just had a great match. I'm feeling good. Boom. I want to challenge Kofi. He doesn't have to be on the pay-per-view. It could be
I don't
a
think
feud.
Bobby Lashley's big enough.
Not yet?
No. I don't, because he had one really good match, instantly he's going to challenge for the title. I mean, he was just losing and getting shoved through the Titantron like 2 weeks ago.
Okay,
so,
then it could potentially be Braun Strowman. See, why does Braun Strowman got to be in the
true.
Universal title picture?
That's
it could be,
true.
I think Kofi versus Braun Strowman could have some intrigue.
Could be Braun. But Braun at this point's a face. And I mean, I know Mustafa was a face, but I just think there's an interesting storyline there already built in.
So try and true you think it's going to be Randy?
Yeah.
It makes most sense.
It does. I mean, you just had Samoa Joe, and Elias is not on that level yet, you know? I mean, if you did a better job booking Elias, it could totally be Elias. But you've done such a crap job booking Elias, he's not there yet.
So I think you and I are in agreement, just based upon the fact that Bray Wyatt is on Raw, gives it enough credibility to have Raw win the week.
Yeah, I think Raw was the better show, the more concise show. I think it was more balanced. Like I said earlier, Raw was a nice steady mix. You had some good highs, you had some good lows, but they weren't huge. Whereas I think SmackDown, the highs were decent, but the lows were low.
So with our remaining 5 minutes, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes.
Okay, so lots of wrestling this past weekend with AEW's Fight for the Fallen, Evolve's 10-year anniversary show, New Japan continuing their B block of the G1, and WWE's Extreme Rules taking place. Now we have some injuries that we have to get updated on because a couple people were hurt during these shows. So Will Ospreay has what is believed to be a muscular issue, as New Japan tweeted that his injury is not skeletal or related to his nervous system, so he's going to be taking some time off to recuperate. Britt Baker suffered a concussion, and MJF has an elbow injury after Fight for the Fallen. Becky's face was lumped up pretty good after her match with Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans. It appears she took the bump when Evans kind of flung this chair. I don't know what Evans was trying to do. It looks like she kind of wanted to go swing it and then thought better of it and then just kind of let it go, and the chair totally flew and hit Becky right square in the forehead. This ended poorly for Evans because Becky no-sold it and then hit her with 3 straight chair shots and picked her ass up and tossed her to the guardrail.
Real quick regarding Lacey, did you see that kind of creative zoom in on her tush when on Extreme Rules? Look up Lacey Evans. She walks up onto the apron and the camera kind of zooms up on her ass. So it's nice.
Vince is a perv. All right, staying with WWE, USA Network has pushed for this Raw reunion, and it's more or less for a ratings bump. So you can expect to see Stone Cold Steve Austin and Hulk Hogan pop up next week. Reports are that Eric Bischoff, who is taking over SmackDown, already has some heat on him, and that's because he's not really been integrated into the show by his choice, whereas Paul Heyman has been in Gorilla working with Vince and has been in creative helping with Raw. Eric Bischoff has done none of these things and basically took over this week. So it's believed he's a little bit behind the 8 ball as far as what's actually going on with the product. So Jeff Hardy is apparently back on the sauce. Hardy was arrested this past weekend when he was found passed out in a public stairwell in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Prior to the arrest, Hardy reportedly admitted to police that he had been drinking vodka. So this is kind of a sad case because Jeff Hardy has battled addiction for most of his life. It's led to some of the worst wrestling matches you've ever seen. If you want, go Google TNA, Jeff Hardy Sting. It's an absolute mess. Hopefully he finds some sobriety and gets better. Mickie James had successful ACL surgery on her knee. She's now recuperating. She'll need some more time off before she's back in the ring. And it sounds like Finn Balor has asked for some time off. So if he does have a storyline going with Bray Wyatt, expect it to be a short one. Expect Bray to get the win. And this is because he wants some time to recharge and recuperate.
See, I think it's a big mistake. It should be the Fiend and the Demon WrestleMania. Why would you rush this? I mean, yeah, I think you're setting the seeds. I think, hopefully, if they're wise, you're planting the seeds for a longer feud. If you rush this for SummerSlam, I think it's wrong. I think Finn Balor can just try to win the title versus Nakamura. You can finish that up, button up, or you tease up the club reunion. But I think you got to wait. You could pay this off. Fiend, Demon, Mania.
I like it. I don't know if I really want to see it, though.
You don't want to see that at the biggest stage of them all?
Dude,
what?
We've had Sister Abigail versus the Demon, and that was crap. So, I mean, if I can pull that image up and show you that image again, you're just going to be like vomit in my mouth.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to see this again. It'll be interesting to see what they do, though. That's all I got as far as news and notes go. It's another good podcast.
Very great podcast recapping the craziness that was this week in professional wrestling. I want to thank those that support us. You can find this podcast anywhere your favorite podcasts are located. Thank you so much for supporting us. Follow Dennis Farrell on Twitter at Dennis77Farrell. Listen to the Wrestling Perspective podcast on this network. Dennis does great work. A lot of meaningful, impactful interviews from the crew over there at Impact. Definitely Dennis Farrell, Petey Williams have a great wrestling podcast, also available on this network. If you've agreed or disagreed with any of our thoughts regarding the angles, Raw, SmackDown, any of the pay-per-views you saw this weekend, head on over to Flick and definitely carry on the conversation there. Find the invite link on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Join up, and each and every show, Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, you can get into the debates. There's an AEW forum. There's a Pro Wrestling Mania forum. There's a WWE forum. During each of the shows, we'll also be talking and chatting. A great group of guys there that love wrestling, and join us there via Flick. Thanks so much to our presenting sponsor of this podcast, flickapp.com. See everybody next week for another edition of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast, available every Friday on the network.